Most contractors think winning the contract is the hard part. It's not. Managing a government construction contract is where most businesses fall apart. Miss deadlines, mess up paperwork, don't manage their subs right. You can lose money, damage your reputation, or get locked out of future contracts. So I'm breaking down what it actually takes to manage a government construction project the right way. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Felicia. I help construction companies win and manage government contracts without putting their business at risk. And this is the part that nobody teaches. What happens after the win? All right, let's dive in. So the first thing is contract management is not just do the work. A lot of contractors think we won the contract, now all we have to do is build. And that's not how government contracts work. Here's what you're managing: compliance requirements, workers, what type of material you'll be using, because it has to be in alignment with what the government wants. Some suppliers, they could have said, you know what, we don't like their materials, we don't want to use it. So you have to manage that. In addition to managing timelines, you also have reporting. And I always say, document everything. Everything. You'll also have to report work hours, your tasks completed, as well as any change orders. And then you also may have to deal with inspections. So you may have OSHA pop up, inspection on the work you've completed, as well as your walkthroughs. Now let's talk about the paperwork, that documentation. You want to make sure you're documenting your schedules, completed work, your change orders, cost for sure. Also, there's going to be communication, right? You're going to be communicating with your contracting officers, your subcontractors, your internal team. And some of the things that you should be communicating is any potential issues that you see. You should be communicating change orders that's going to be coming down, as well as any schedule delays you foresee. And of course, when you're communicating potential issues, schedule delays, any change orders, how are you going to mitigate that risk? How are you going to reduce the cost to the government? You also want to make sure you're communicating that as well. So you're not just a builder anymore. You're running a regulated project with oversight. All right, the second thing is you need systems. If you don't have systems, you will fall behind. You're going to need systems for your daily logs, change orders, subcontractor tracking, certified payroll if you have to submit that, and then also your invoicing and your draws. Because remember this is a writer downer, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And in government contracting, that will cost you. Now, this one here, the third thing, this will make or break you as well. Subcontractor management is everything. Your subcontractors is the people, the companies that will help your business grow. They are the people that will help you take your business to that next level, because you can't do it all alone, especially when you look at growing and scaling your business, when you want to get into multiple contracts at one time and then get into those $1 million contracts. So this is something that you want to start mastering like right now. And here's the thing, most of your issues come from your subcontractors. They don't show up. What will you do? How will you handle it? How will you get the project back on schedule? And if you have subcontractors that don't show up, do you have a database that you can go to and maybe reach out to other subcontractors in case you have to replace them? Your subcontractors may miss deadlines. For example, performance schedules, deadlines in submitting their invoices, their certified payroll, so that you can submit your certified payroll and invoices, and also in paying their subcontractors. Because let me tell you, if your subs don't pay their subs are coming to you. And if they so happen to go to the agency is coming to you, because it's your project. Another place your subcontractors fall down is they submit incomplete paperwork. So if their invoices is not complete, if the certified payroll is not complete or done wrong, if their draws are not filled out correctly and they don't have the supporting documentation that you need to submit to the government, that will hold up your invoices, which in turn will hold up your pay. And another key area where your subcontractors will fall down is they don't understand compliance. But here's the reality. You're responsible for all of it. The government, they don't chase subs. They come to you. So if you don't have structure, you'll be constantly putting out fires. Here's a suggestion. Here's what I suggest. As you're making the move to government contracting, more so as you're making the move to be in the prime position, start building your sub database and then start training your subs that you're going to be working with consistently on how to do these things. Like, it will benefit you in the long run. And if you don't have the capacity or if you don't have the skill set to teach them what they need to know, then definitely send them here, right? They can always join us in Prime Ready Accelerator as well. Don't look at it as they're going to take your projects, because trust me, it's enough to go around. And people have asked, why do you train people to do the same thing you do? There's enough to go around. One company cannot possibly do all of the work. So it's always better if you can build a team that you can trust, you can count on, you know their quality of work is up to your standards, and they understand the paperwork just as you. Now, let me ask you this. If you won a government contract tomorrow, are you actually ready to manage it? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's get into number 4, cash flow. Cash flow will make or break you. Now, cash flow is where a lot of contractors struggle, especially when they start getting into multiple projects as well as larger projects. They're starting to stretch, but they have not addressed the cash flow. And here's the thing, government contracts, they don't always pay fast. Now, I'm not saying that they pay late either, but they don't always pay fast. Here's what I mean. When you submit your first invoice for payment, you have to understand, especially if this is your first time working with that agency, that they also have to do paperwork to get you into their systems to make sure you get paid. So that is a process that they have to do also on their end, which it won't start until after they know who they're awarding the contract to and you guys agree upon the terms of that, and then they can start putting you in the system. So it is a process, so understand that. So when you submit that first invoice, sometimes it could take 45 to 60 days for you to receive payment from the time you submit a complete invoice. Now, sometimes people say, oh, the government pays slow, blah, blah, blah. Usually it's because you did not complete, or let me say, submit a complete packet. In your solicitation, in the contract, they're going to tell you what you have to submit with your invoice for it to be a complete packet to where they will process it for payment. You don't get to decide, oh, I'm going to submit this, or, oh, I'm not going to put my documentation or backup. No, you have to submit exactly what they ask for if you want to get paid. And what happens is when you see those slow payments is someone has submitted, their invoice and something was missing. So then they have to come back and ask for something. And so that delay the process. Now, after you're in the system, it's like clockwork. Okay. Usually if you have, net 15 or net 30, whatever it is, from the time you submit a complete invoice, you might can get paid as early as 15 days. It depends on what is in the contract as far as the payment terms. But here's the thing, where we talk about the cash flow, right? You have to keep in mind that you still have to pay your team. You still have to pay your subs. Now, I suggest with your subs is you negotiate something to the fact to where, let's say, you're net 30 with the government. Well, if you can push it out net 45 with your subs, then that'll give you some leeway on the cash flow to where you're able to pay them kind of after you get paid. And if you can't push it out that far, maybe 7 to 10 days after, when you're expected to get payment. Same thing with your suppliers, where you're getting your materials for, don't ask for net 30. See if you can get net 60 or net 90 days. Now, at the end of the day, if you don't have a plan for cash flow, you'll be stressed the entire project, or worse, unable to finish. And we do not want you to be in a position where you're unable to finish a project because of cash flow. Because the last thing you want to have happen is the project is taken away from you because you couldn't finish the project. Because let me tell you, in the contract, you better read it, they will back charge you. So not only do you lose out on the rest of the project and the money that you could have made from that point forward, but with them back charging you, now you're going to also owe them money. So if you're already having cash flow issues, you know what that means, right? It could possibly put you out of business. That's why you want to make sure you are ready to be a prime. Get prime ready. All right, number 5, compliance, non-negotiable. This is the biggest difference between private and government work. A lot of what I teach and I, talk about government contracting, it works in the private sector. It works in corporate as well. All right, the concept, the basis is pretty much the same. Now, when we talk about compliance, here are some of the things that you're dealing with if you're not aware of them. Davis, Beacon, wages. And this, outlines what you should be paying your workers, what their wage is, what their wage rate should be. There you go. Also, certified payroll is another thing that you may have to be in compliance with. And with that, certified payroll is basically showing the proof, the backup that your subcontractors have paid their people, and also for you that you've paid your people. You also may have safety requirements. More than likely on construction projects, that is the case. And that's where OSHA comes in. And so you'll have to make sure you're running your project up to OSHA standards. And if you don't know what OSHA standards is, you can definitely search it online. There are consultants out there that can help you. They specialize in OSHA. There's OSHA certified. You can get someone in your company to get OSHA certified and handle that piece for you as well. You'll also have to be in compliance with all of your contract clauses. Now, I know you get a solicitation, you want to skim it, go to scope of work and just bid it, but you need to understand those clauses as well. So you can't skip that part. Make sure you're reading those clauses, because if you mess this up, it's not just the delay. It can turn into penalties or even losing the contract. This is why being a good contractor is not enough. You have to be a compliant contractor. All right, number 6, communication can save or destroy the project. You need to have consistent communication with your contracting officer. Who's ever overseeing the project on the agency side, whoever your contact is, you need to be in regular communication with them. And more than likely, you guys will probably have, scheduled monthly meetings or something like that anyway. But if you have any issues come up, any issues you foresee coming up, you need to be communicating those. Also, depending on how you're communicating, make sure you back it up with putting it in writing. You also should be communicating with your project managers. They need to know any and everything that's going on with the project, any changes that's taking place with the project as it relates to what subcontractors you have, schedule changes, scope of work changes, because they're the ones that will be running the day-to-day of your project and making sure that you're staying on schedule, within budget, and executing at the standard that the work needs to be done. They'll also be managing your subcontractors as well, so keep that in mind. Now, it could be just your superintendent as well, just depending on what the contract calls for. So if you don't have a project manager on site, then it would be the superintendent. Now, if you have a project manager and superintendent, you should be communicating with both as well. Just understand, superintendent is, if you have both, your superintendent is probably more as it relates to the actual work that's being performed, and your project manager is overseeing more of the paperwork, schedules, any delays, change orders, and things like that. And then also your inspectors, if you have inspectors coming in, you should be communicating with them as well. We all know this, whether in life or business, silence can create problems. So make sure you're having regular meetings with your subcontractors, with your project managers, your superintendents, and the contracting team. The contractors who win long term are the ones who communicate early, document everything, and stay ahead of the issues. This is why a lot of contractors, they win one contract and then they never win again. And it's not because they can't do the work, but because they were not prepared to manage it. Now, if you're serious about not just winning contracts, but actually managing and scaling them the right way, I'm working with a small group of construction companies right now who want to be prime ready and build a structure behind the business. Now, if that's you, check out the link below and apply. Or just start by asking yourself, do I actually have the systems to handle the contract I say I want? Do you? Now, if this helps, make sure you subscribe, because I'm not just showing you how to win contracts, I'm showing you how to keep them. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.